giving. Right. He calls you right back. Yeah, but yeah, he was just hammering, and not understanding, why these additional.
Okay, welcome everybody. Today is August 3rd. It's a working session meeting of the Westchester Borough Planning Commission. Today we have Alan Burke, Steve, Thomas Doherty, Sheila DeBarro. I'm Jim Cherry. Are there any announcements?
Zoning hearing board. We do have the hearing for 244 East 7th Street, which will be continued. We've heard the applicant's testimony. We have not heard testimony from the parties that are attached to it. However, there is an agreement that's trying to be worked out between the borough and the applicant to see about keeping the use in the place where it is and just making it to what people that are living here are comfortable with the second of all, we have 2 hearings coming up in August. One will be for 615 17 South Walnut Street to hear their case in regards to the 2 parking spots on the alley. The other one is for a house being built up at 500 West Lafayette Street. Everything was okay with that, except for there is one of the side yards from 11 feet because it's an non-conforming lot. So they'll be doing the variance for the principal side setback. And the zoning department this last week it did approve all of the submissions. There were some conditions and so forth.
Okay, very good. Any citizens' comments on items not on the agenda? Very good. All right. Anybody from Planning Commission, anything?
Matt Paisley generously offered to give us a quick update of HARB. It's a HARB report.
So for a surprise update.
Could you come up?
You gotta come up to where it's still the city.
Matt Paisley is a member of the HARB, so we don't often get reports directly from HARB, but it's a nice moment to meet you.
Thanks, Thomas.
Put them on the spot.
Yes, we've had a good couple of great meetings recently. Most of them have been pretty simple approvals and reviews of handrails, HVAC equipment, a lot of signs. And it seems when people pay attention to the requirements for HARB and do a little bit of legwork, not much, the approvals seem to go through pretty well. And just keeping with the consistency of the borough, the color schemes, the simplicity of the brackets, that's been most of what we've been reviewing recently. Aaron came in last week and got to sit in with us, and we had a challenging, I shouldn't say challenging, but a unique request for removal of building. And he expanded upon it from his perspective. I'm grateful for that insight. Bringing the codes enforcement into the HARB review is always helpful to give that perspective of, the HARB renders an opinion on what is appropriate, but they do not render an opinion on code requirements. So it's been fruitful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas, for putting that on the spot. Okay. Pete, back to the hot seat there.
All right.
So 410 South High Street, 3 of the townhomes. Again, we'll have a general discussion. And we did receive a review letter from Carol Quigley and shared that with you. As you brought Gabe. So I think I'm hoping that everybody from Planning Commission had an opportunity to review that letter as well. I'm just going to back up the a small step prior to. When we were forming the new use group, I wait for CJ to step in here. When we were forming the new use group, Unified Residential Development, as a new use in the town center, and kind of shaping and writing that ordinance. The one of the bigger goals and desires was to re-legalize buildings that used to be built in the borough that are significantly smaller than the present zoning may require. As an example, at a minimum 20-foot wide lot, it's probably a little wider than your average 150-foot lot or maybe building. So they might have 14, 16 to 18s. So what we were looking to do was allow residential developments in the town center, increase the density, and really create something that's more consistent and sympathetic to the original fabric of historic Westchester Borough. Those would be townhomes in tight-knit, small communities. So one of the requirements we put in there was to really help the planning commission out. And with bringing on board a borough architect to review the proposed development and render decisions or opinions that would help inform the planning commission and kind of guide us when we make a recommendation. And it help us just to type things up. In the past, we've had developments that have come in front of us. We've voiced opinions, maybe counter to the applicants, designers and architects and developers, that we just never really had a good team. So as they were going forward, we say, it's not consistent. They would say it is consistent, and then it would just kind of move forward. So what we're trying to do here with this is get a little more clarity, get a little more definition and understanding and professionals' opinion on these developments that goes beyond just your typical planning, but just a really better understanding and recommendation to the planning commission. So I appreciate Carl putting and Dale to put that letter together, reviewing that project. And Carol Quigley is here today to have a conversation with us about that letter, maybe review some of those high points. But again, we were looking for something that we're looking in new developments to be very consistent in both quality, materials, scale, real sympathetic and consistent with the historic nature of the borough. And when I say that, is to prevent, say for instance, I don't want to name names, but say a large developer or a nationwide developer would come in and they would place a bunch of townhomes in there that fit the massing, but then they were just, vinyl siding, vinyl windows, asphalt shingle roof, and, they're putting together a building that's going to be 20, 30 years and going to be looking at a lesser product. When we say we're looking for developments that are contributing or what's a contributing resource, that's what we're looking to do. Looking for permanence. We're looking for something that contributes and enhances and becomes integral and seamless into the community. And I think so I'm going to start with that as a little bit of background there. Carol, do you want to come forward? And you're welcome to sit here or next to John. There's a microphone there. So we take the meetings for Brian Nagel when they're doing it. So talk quickly. So I'm just kidding.
No, Brian's not
He pays
going
by the
to
hour.
chide me.
Gets paid by the hour.
Well, I talk too much, and as you can see, sometimes we write too much. So I apologize if that seems long-winded. Would you like me to give like a sort of an overview of the comments that we Dale and I sent forward? Like as a very overarching statement, I think that the new ordinance that was created and the response to it by Pete and his team is great. And while this might look like a long letter, I think it's really sort of minuscule compared to some of the discussions that have been had over the last 20 years with developments of this size and scale. So, so thanks. So I really, I mean, again, this might look like a long letter, but I think there are a few sort of basic points that, in my opinion, could be resolved pretty easily from a, I'm looking at you now, as a designer, from a design perspective. But I think the overarching, concerns are, first of all, just getting a real defined and dimensional understanding of where the heights are relative to the existing adjacent fabric. I understand, we have the 45 foot height limit for other reasons. I'm sorry, this is not my hard hat. It's the historic architect hat, but we use the design guidelines to consider in this review as well. And so from that perspective, we consider the context, and we have as I've described and you described in your presentation as well, a varied context of vertical dimensions around that block, but knowing a little bit more accurately what it is. I think the 45 foot even to the top of the fourth story in some respects might be very close to the one example I cited on the northeast corner of Magnolia and High Street. And I think providing that dimensional difference between the proposed, both the cornice of the third floor and the actual height of the fourth floor, with whatever you can establish to be that height of the tallest structures around it would be really helpful to see how that really does sort of fit within the design guidelines recommendations for new construction in the context. Same thing for horizontal dimensions. I cited specifically the setback or the lack of setback. It looks like the Price Street block is directly on the lot line. We would recommend that it get pushed back to whatever the maximum is allowable by the ordinance, because it is so very different than the directly adjacent residences further west on Price Street. I think that would create sort of a jarring, change to the streetscape as you move west towards High Street, move east towards High Street, and suddenly have this, 3+ story structure that's 17 feet in front of it from the balance of the streetscape along Price. So I think those two things are, just getting an understanding of what they actually are, and including that within the paperwork, and considering some modifications to that, specifically with the siting of the Price Street block. That's sort of the biggest from a site perspective. From the architecture perspective, I think it's the presence of the fourth floor that is along High Street. It being flush with the lower 3 floors that do have this nice third floor cornice that really, sort of highlights the 3-story massing, we want to highlight for anybody, going down High Street and coming from any direction. Really, the impact is of a 3-story building, but at High Street, that 4th story is right there, and it changes so drastically in both material and window and fenestration patterns, and is also still flush with it. It's a very sort of like, I understand what you're trying to do with the distinction between 3 and 4, but that language is so very different. It's not a primary facade in its material or in its detail, or its fenestration or its rhythm. And I really hope that there's a way to push it back, like you've done on the Price Street and the Dean Street blocks. I think that's far more successful. And even though High Street, somewhere along North and South High Street, we do have taller buildings. We don't have much right there. And again, it's just so very different. If it's more similar, then perhaps as that sort of attic story above that 3rd floor cornice, then it can work. But it's just so very different right now, and it's just sort of not, sort of primary facade detail and material. And I think I would take that conversation and take it to the primary facades that are really primary on the north and south ends of the High Street block, as well as the visible ends, the east and west end of the Price Street block, and then the east end of the Dean Street block. Those are absolutely, visible from everybody coming up and down High Street. While they are side facades of the block, where those blocks are, where those side facades are, they are, principal and primary facades, and they need to be treated as such with the fenestration pattern, whether they're maybe even real or fake windows, not really sure, but I think there's ways to massage some of the window detailing, or some of the placements of windows to make them truly present as primary facades if they are on High Street. So I think those are like sort of you know, really big elements, and then there are smaller elements of each one. But I think I see it as a tiny detail of design challenge, but I think overall it's a, you know, great route and very welcome, alternative to previous considerations.
I'm gonna, Carol, pull up those renderings
Yeah,
if I'm able, and maybe it will be easier for individuals to visualize. Is it E or D?
It's no,
The mouse. Right.
I didn't touch on, I guess the fourth point is the facade development of both Dean Street and Price Street, sort of.
I was hoping you changed your mind.
No, yeah, I'm sorry. I actually considered it further today. No, but I do think that the 3 floors of High Street are great. I mean, do they repeat almost all the way down and have matching bookends? They do. Do we do that any number of places in the city or any number of places in Westchester? You know, pretty similarly. And I think it's a good unit to repeat. Dean Street and Price Street do not feel like they've been treated in the same way, but they are worthy of the same development. But I think there are, again, there are easy ways to do that, whether it be the introduction of a couple bays or the introduction of shutters, you know. But there are elements to work with that fenestration and sort of resolve some of the bouncing fenestration that would also, you know, dress that facade up. And I don't mean it to be, you know, just decoration, but really bringing those facades alive and having them sort of worthy of their placement on the street.
And you're primarily talking, Carol, about that. Yeah.
So I was, but I forgot the sort of the other primary issue, and that's the development of the Dean Street, the whole facades of Dean Street, the whole facade of Price Street. There, you know, I think High Street is very nicely developed with these 2-story bays that are on the sort of the central units. We wouldn't talk about the 3 stories, but on Dean and Price, it just feels like they're secondary to the High Street facade, and it's the internal facades that are technically secondary. Those are really the only secondary facades on this development, with, you know, Dean, Price, and High Street on the side elevations that face those and are so visible from traffic coming in each way. Only the interior facades are secondary, and those sort of are really treated as primary as High Street.
Yeah. And I think overall, relatively speaking, I appreciate the fact that their approach is 3 dimensional, that all 4 sides have some importance.
I do as well.
There is
Yeah.
a hierarchy, but we have seen developments in the past where just the street sides addressed, and then as soon as you turn that corner, it quickly drops off. So I do appreciate the fact that there's maybe a level of design and material. So I'm going to say I don't necessarily need to go back and forth or have that conversation. I do think it's fair enough, though, relative planning commission standpoint, if we hear statements of conversation, if you do want to engage in conversation, that's fair enough, but you don't have to necessarily solve everything today. We have time to put together a response. Ours is to try to just hear and collect as much information as possible to understand that. And then we will take some comments, because this is a work session and choose to do so. So I don't know if you have some specific you want to run down.
Sure. Are you saying so I had questions for Carol, or right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Comments. Are you going to go around at some point?
Yeah, you can start. Or unless you want. Yeah. Now, I'm going to say is us with Carol's primary from my understanding, just to understand the development of the letter. And then I think it's fair to the applicants here with their design team, and I think it's fair enough that they also provide comment.
Do you want
You want me to, you want Gabe to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe go back to the first rendering so you can kind of see that side elevation a little bit clearer, maybe. Sorry, yeah, right here. This maybe shows the comparison. Huh?
Speak up.
Sure. Yeah, this one shows the comparison of pricing and high street. So first off, really appreciate your feedback and close review of things, and I think all of your points are valid, absolutely. So I would say, first off, our approach to the project has been to first and foremost want to make sure that the project is contextually appropriate in scale, material, massing, aesthetic, window patterns, language, all of those things. We aren't necessarily trying to replicate a historic look necessarily, or replicate historic details to the, exact replication, but rather interpretations in some instances, right? And have the building and design have somewhat of a unique identity in certain elements. So we made some decisions with that in mind. So I guess just to take things one by one, the comment about just the dimensional relationships being demonstrated on the drawings, yeah, that's absolutely something we can incorporate and demonstrate, and I think it's totally fair. Let's see, as far as the facade treatment for the different frontages, our approach was really to create as much variety as we could, given that there's a lot of repeating units, a lot of length of these facades. I wanted to incorporate variety in the materiality, the massing, the window language, and create some unique identity to each of the frontages where there's opportunity. Was kind of like the thought process with it, which is, on the frontages along High Street, it presents itself with kind of the bay language and the end units not having bays, and that kind of
Based on the side.
right,
Yeah.
right. So that was kind of the idea. Then on the Dean and Price Street ones, we kind of played that game with variety within the window patterns for 3 and grouping of grouping of windows as well to create that variety. All that to say, that is the big change difference between the two facades is the bay versus the no bay. As far as the materiality and the detailing within the brick facade that we wanted to incorporate with the frames around the windows, with the patterns that we've put in there, that is all still present on every facade. As far as incorporating bays on those other facades, I think it's worth revisiting, and we can see if it's workable to incorporate them.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to really try to steer clear of making it design solution, recommendations for the designer. So it was really just a matter of something.
Yeah.
How you choose to, solve that issue if it's agreed to be an issue. We look forward to.
All right.
As you know as well, lots of ways to do it.
Lots of ways to do it. Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. All right. So what else was there? Was the in terms of just the mansard or the 4th floor? Let's not call it a mansard. Sure.
There is something very
Correct.
specific.
Agree. So the treatment of holding that 3rd floor cornice line, creating the heavy cornice line at the top of the brick at essentially the 4th floor line, of course, was to tie it back to the massing and scale throughout, and the transition of material, to reduce the massing is the clear reason to do it. In terms of board and batten and the material change, there's of course different constraints that we're up against from a cost perspective and those types of things as well for the materiality. And I think we can revisit what that might be up there to see if there's ways to incorporate depth within the window plane. As far as the windows themselves and the language, we had wanted to differentiate the brick area with the divided light windows from the 4th floor with the single panes. That was kind of like a conscious decision.
It appeared to be a site I would have to suggest that might not be the best.
Not the right move. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Vision for.
Okay.
Primary facades. I mean, if they didn't evoke something so very different,
mhm.
I'm gonna say it, already. Like a ranch, 1950s one-story ranch, or like those, like especially that triple window that we see right there. That picture window with the two flanking. I mean, those
Yeah.
that like belongs in the picture window in the living room in 1950s one-story ranch. And so it's just so different. And as far as the high street facades, they line up. They use a twin window over top of a very differently proportioned single window, so that. Well, I get the notion of doing something very different. If it was like recessed and you did something where it was just all open and so it really sort of disappeared, like that would be one thing. But because this is so evocative of something incredibly different that just doesn't fit on the top of these things, it's more problematic.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's obvious you're doing something different. You just don't because it does. It's trying to be independent, but it's not independent. These things still participate in the overall, sort of rhythm and pattern of the streets. And again, primary facade of the street. So, I get what you want to do, but I don't think it can be done in this way at that location.
Yeah, that's fair feedback. And incorporating a similar window approach is more than reasonable for us to do.
It's just similarly proportioned, consistently, but maybe the mounted does something different, but proportions sort of keeps it.
Okay. Did we any points I missed?
I could have just added to the letter and made the nicer comments, but I think the rear elevations, especially the high street side, are really successful. I think they might be impacted by solving some issues on the front side. Hopefully minimally. You find that happy median in there, that's grand. But as far as this elevation of these recessed third story spaces and further recessed fourth story, I thought those were really successful for the rear elevations.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thomas.
Sure. So last month, but I was going to say, it's so refreshing to have so many of the issues that we've seen over the last almost 2 years now resolved because of these different building types, right? All of a sudden, building height steps along High Street, steps along the side streets. Opening up the architectural package, you can have those recessed front doors on High Street. What a great detail. The use of brick throughout, so often, as the townhouse projects that come up, you see hardy, immediately to the sides, and you wrap this. And so, to Carol's letter, she says, look forward to discussing the significant project further. And I'm very pleased to see the attention to design and context that has been presented thus far. And I really also appreciate this letter. As Jim has said, we've been in this tough situation of having regulations that are at odds with zoning. And so we have things that are permissible via zoning, height, whatever, building massing, and then trying to shove that into historic guidelines, which obviously they just can't fit. And so being able to take my time and read through this, it was really helpful to have the clarity that you brought to this. And so I just wanted to touch on just a few different things. I think the first one, and this is a great rendering to have up, that the end facade on High Street of both townhouse, obviously on Price and Dean. That's something that Alan last month you brought up. You said, well, great project, we appreciate it, looks great, but if more attention can be given to that end unit, because I think Carol's points are right on. If you go further north on High Street throughout that, I'm just picturing a couple. I'm actually picturing side streets, like high, like building facing high side. You often actually see no windows, or even just like 1 or 2 windows. And right now, I think that the number of windows maybe that are on there is, feels disjointed. Whereas, so many beautiful components that I love the high street facade, especially, the lower three levels, as Carol's pointing out. But those end units do look like they can be tamed down a bit, and you're getting the floor plan to work elsewhere. And so maybe I would argue it's as simple as removing a handful of those windows. And okay, that leads me to the second. So
Just,
Yeah.
sorry, was that on which windows, sorry, were you talking about? The windows on,
I guess I'm thinking that, the facade there, yeah, right, exactly. Maybe
Okay.
just minimizing some of those windows, but
Mhm.
I thought of it, you pointed out, and then Carol, you also addressed your letter, and I was thinking that is definitely a place where there might be value add there. Carol, you talked about the board and batten. There were a couple different things about fourth floor. One, and I think this is a great rendering if you're looking at, the fourth floor disappears on Price and D, right? And we're on the far side of the street, and yet I don't see it. If there was a possibility of pushing the high street back, which I know you're losing square footage, and so that's really tough to do. But if you could push back a few feet, I would argue that if you can't see those horizontal 3-bay windows,
Mhm.
then maybe it's okay, right?
Yeah, no, what we can't
as long
see
as,
is fine.
as long as you're in the middle one, you can see it from the ground, perfect. And then similarly, okay, so on that note, Carol, one of the things you pointed out was the board and batten, and I was wondering, is there a different wall treatment? I think board and batten in the borough, I think of accessory.
Yes, except for the last edition on,
That's right.
telescoping.
Would there be a different wall treatment that you would find more great? No, I would think one thing, if you don't see it at all, maybe knock yourself out board and batten. If you do see it from the street, Carol, did you have a recommendation?
I'm hesitant to, I've got one brick, so that there's a cost to there, but like a different color, a different color.
That'd be,
I think, I really would not recommend, horizontal siding.
yeah.
Something that is more solid and it's, something that is sort of more formal. And less traditionally applied to an addition at the back of the house, because that's what board and batten siding is in our town,
Right.
So something that has a more formal presence for what these are, which are on the sides.
Right.
Um,
Well, I would go out and say that if we do see the fourth floor, I think that horizontals are going to be slightly better than board and batten, but that's just my 2 cents. The variety comment, I'm almost done, but the comment on that variety, that price and D, I appreciate that, and I agree at the same time. I think it's a beautiful design. Actually, we had a citizen comment to bring it up from last month that was saying these are way too uniform, right? This doesn't look like single family homes because it's all the same. And I thought, let's go and walk through. Let's just. But we did have, it brought it to mind, and that's a citizen comment. If that's their reaction, that's going to be, somebody's going to be engaging with this. So it's a spectrum. I just wanted to comment on that. That was it. Just thanks. Again, it was a real pleasure to flip through these architectural drawings, the plans. It definitely exceeded my expectations. So, thanks.
Appreciate it.
Steve?
You said a comment was learning. You said something, it looks great to me as a layperson. And I certainly appreciate all the work that goes into it. Comments from professionals.
Steve? Alan?
I guess I want to pull us in. Appreciate it. To me, this is how the process is supposed to model for that. Dealing with the design that's not universally priced. We got to rethink new architect, new sensibilities, and come up with a plan that is not historic Westchester. It's a blend of different styles, and, but in my view, very successful, very much, uh, appropriate for Westchester. And that, as we've outlined, the process, this plan goes to our historic architect who does the careful examination and provides very helpful and authoritative guidance. Pay attention to the applicant accepting that and being in a positive frame of mind about trying to address those comments. So I'm just very happy with how this is all going. I thank you for all the time and effort that is on it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Al.
I'm sorry. I very much appreciated all of your comments. However, I'm gonna kind of disagree with it. It's not disagree. It's I saw that fourth floor as reading as contemporary, which I think is what you saw it as reading as. And in my mind, this is a contemporary building and it should read as such. I am grateful for sort of the authenticity of the building, that it is honest in what it is. It's a modern piece of architecture that is going into it very tastefully going into our town center. That was basically, I kind of went, oh, that's really, your letter was not harsh, but it was.
I know it's harsh.
It was, yeah, no, it was not. It was very well written and I know where you were coming from. I just, if I were purchasing one of these houses, I feel like it reads as a newly built building, and yes, typically the board and batten would be the kitchen off the bathroom, off the everything else in the back. I feel like that kind of reads as an additional part and maintaining the 3-story, and then this is actually new. I also think that our downtown is leaning more and more urban, and this, because of that, fourth floor reads a little bit more urban, not horribly more urban, but a little bit. So that was.
And might suggest, and perhaps you could agree or disagree with me, that the rendering looks better than the words for that. It looks like metal.
Yes,
And
it does.
if it were metal, that is, I'm not saying that I wouldn't still want to push it back, but metal is far more comfortable for that particular
Yes.
location than board and batten.
Okay, that I don't agree with. Now, I do agree with pushing it back slightly. So
You don't agree that that might look like metal, which can be done in a board and batten vertical seam.
it can be done well and perfectly and beautifully, sure. But I just think that I do still think pushing it back slightly on High Street would be pleasant.
Good.
Mhm.
Nice to see.
Right.
Very good.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna just add one, I'm gonna reiterate one piece there. When you're a brand new development, the entire block length of repetitive types of units and stuff, I think where you, that's such a understatement relative to what you're able to achieve here, is that unique identity within something, that you're creating something that's repetitive and at the same time breaking up that repetitive nature of it. So it does get really just like one big long giant sentence if every unit was to look the same. And I think this has beginnings, ends, it has some motion, it has some rest. I think there's a little bit of relief, there's breaks in the massing. I think there's a lot of very good from, it looks stunning. So it conveys it was stunning. So I think the thought there, I think there's moments there like along High Street. There's really, and I think people will, once it's built, will really appreciate those vestibules, those alcoves, those bays, and what that really feels like along that street, both as a pedestrian as well as driving past it. I think turning the corners and getting some relief of that, if that was everywhere, I think it would become monotonous. I do think that to kind of respect the scale and that transition of the types of neighborhoods and locations, I think it's fair. I do think the comments are good comments, and I think it's fair enough to maybe revisit this or something that could take into, so I think taking some of that stuff into consideration, all these pieces is fair enough of a starting point. I did, while we have some neighbors and residents would like to offer an opportunity to also comment, because Kelly right here. CJ?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess the first thing I want to say is that I think that the letter, review letter, if you will, that Ms. Quigley produced, is considered. And I don't want my comments to in any way mean that it's not, because I'm not going to go with that. That kind of thing. But if I was to make a gross characterization, I meant the word characterization of what I came away from that is that to a large extent, although you change the typology of buildings, which I'll be the first one to admit major improvement and accomplishment. Although you did that, you kind of snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And I think if you look at all the comments that people made, and if we consider the two things that Ms. Quigley said in giving what really amounted to her forced summary bullet points of what her own report said, the things that I think she reacted to and I reacted to are the things that make the buildings more like apartments than single-family units, townhomes. Even just now, Jim was talking about blocks. And to some extent, that's what happens. I mean, if you look on Price Street and Main Street, although the upper level accomplishes great things, the rest is a block. If you look at High Street, the fourth level came back out to the same plane, again producing a block like that. And I think that in essence, that defeats the premise that is the wonderful thing that happened here. Going from apartments to single family type units. And that doesn't mean to diminish a lot of what we're seeing. Okay, so don't take it as that. I mean it for the exact words I chose to use. If I did offer any two things about detail, and you were talking about materials and finishes and the like, I mean, the upper level, am I allowed to use the word manslaughter? Just have everybody know. If you go to actual manslaughter, there is one around the corner, 2931D. That could be roofing material. And that might be very economical and it might be very appropriate. And there are all kinds. And when you think about the fact that most of the time in the mid-19th century, they were slaved. I'm not offering that for your consideration, but there are so many imitation slaves out there now that maybe that's a chance. Maybe that's something that could happen. As far as the other areas go, like the paneling and the space, the thing that comes to mind there, even using something, dare I say, lighthearted, configured as panels, as opposed to board and batten, which has been discussed not well tonight. But panels that it could be cut into might again be a better type solution. So, put it in a nutshell, I mean, to the extent that it could be made less apartment block-like,
and so on. I think that's what I hear coming through the letter, coming from people's comments. The most important thing, however, that I want to ask, and I was hoping Tom Esty would be here to ask this question. And Aaron, I don't know, are you functioning as the zoning officer?
I am the zoning officer.
You are, okay, so I'll lay it at your feet, but you don't have to answer it tonight. Because the zoning officer would have such authority. Where does this go from here? Was this a nice little conversation and you all even let me say my piece? And we go home tonight and like, okay, got that one done.
Is that a question for Aaron?
Yeah, what are the teeth in the piece of the ordinance that relate to this? I mean, it's not in the historic district, which Act 247 would have a whole lot to say about.
Correct.
So
It actually is in section 112.916, standards for unified residential development,
I realize that.
where we had put in that the borough architect, which is Ms. Quickly, would help us with commenting on the historical appropriateness of it, because that was when we were doing the original zoning for buildings like this, for this type of development. One of the things that we wanted to do is not rewrite the entire design criteria policy, but to give some teeth in there that allowed us to work on making things not necessarily fit into a specific box, but to be appropriate for the neighborhood, appropriate for the
Well, I'm
context.
going to say I understood all that, and for the sake of everybody, do now recant it. But what it comes down to is what's the state enabling legislation that then makes what you just said enforceable? Because without that, I mean, people can write anything they want with zoning. But if the state
The
enabling
MPC
legislation.
The NPC explains how we're able to write the ordinance.
Municipalities planning code doesn't somehow provide the basis for it, then it's just a bunch of.
This was something that Tom went over, and he did say that the MPC does allow us to have either a design criteria or have review by a consultant to put input into making changes to make sure that we fit the appropriateness. And this was written into the ordinance when we first did it. So that was something that, as a matter of fact, when we went through this ordinance, which was the unified residential development, Thomas was the one who brought it up, saying that we needed to have some way to tie this into the historic features, but more so the preservation characteristics into this, or that's what the solution was to, put a section into that ordinance that allowed the borough's architect to review it. And just as they could review it with their other, Tom Cometa, Pronomi, and every other consultant that we use, to make inputs and changes and recommendations for what needs to be.
And if I can just add, we have had requirements within zoning for a long time, requiring for an HO60, for example, developments within that overlay fit within the historical architectural guidelines. There has not been a review process other than planning commission. Planning commission isn't making a motion to borough council whether or not that building fits within that. And we asked for help. We said, projects are going through that the zoning is in conflict with that, and we need somebody who can advise us on that, a consultant. And so I think it's up to, we have a consultant now that is bringing a huge amount of clarity to this. And I think it's going to be the planning commission going up or down with a motion to borough council regarding that. Hopefully borough council is also reading this letter.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is I realize you have correctly articulated all this into the ordinance, cross-reference.
Sure.
The kind of referencing to the existing components of guidelines that exist in the ordinance and so on and so forth. That's all great. But if there isn't enabling legislation, I'll talk to Tom.
Yeah, I would say,
I reference Tom as Genesis.
yeah, I would say CJ will have Tom Estee to provide a response, but
Tom will be here next.
yeah, short of not having an architectural review board, we do have a HAR, but they're not the same. Either one of those are not what we were looking for here. What we were looking for here was an opportunity, and I'm gonna say for all of the residents' sake, to give an opportunity to put some teeth into something that could stop some bad development that happens. It's really what we're trying to find. There's a stopgap one, bigger,
And I think this is totally headed in the right direction.
sure.
Maybe the question, Peter, and I can ask you, and you don't have to answer it, but I'll also ask your architects. Are there things that you think you could react positively in the spirit of?
Yeah,
what Mr. Davies said?
I think there's a number of things that have been brought up that we can
Well,
look at.
then it doesn't matter what I would say.
Yeah,
If you want to cooperate, you know.
I
go
can
on.
certainly say this, we can't address everything, but we're gonna look at everything and address what we can. I think there was some really good discussion and we did a quick review of the letter this morning and then had a brief discussion, and there's definitely some things, I think there's some good feedback here. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna come back with some changes. I can't solve everything.
I think that's fine, you know, none of it ever did in my circular conversation, but to come to that, that's important. So if that's what you're saying, I appreciate it.
Anything else, CJ? No, thank you so much. Any other comments? We're good. I'll just say, I do very much appreciate, how much you have listened, how much you have incorporated, how much you have significantly modified your approach of the whole project, tailored much towards what the planning commission has been kind of striving to achieve, which is this is basically it. This is what we're trying to achieve as development. The development of this size and this kind of an impact to get potential for 42 new homeowner occupied residents within the borough. It's a beautiful development. So I do very much appreciate all the work. John, you came on this way. Anything?
I just brought the thumbs out.
Oh, you were the most- that was the most important.
Nice work.
Yeah, if I can though, that the one that has these renderings, if we keep that one at least for this week, I can download it, maybe get it out to whoever might need that copy.
These are the renderings from last month.
Yeah,
I can send them to
Okay,
they've been submitted.
sure.
We
Well,
can send them.
Just as a quick reminder.
No problem. You were on vacation. I think you were out the week that we had this last month, so I think that was some confusion.
I think.
But you have it.
And Wendy was out too, I think.
Yes, yeah, I had it because I emailed. So, but mine is just as just as a real quick, the borough has been having some issues relative to the website, which is why we haven't been posting things publicly, because someone's gotten into the computers and has been using my name, the planning commission, Aaron, whatever, to try to extort money from developers.
Oh, I got an email that said approved, so.
It worked.
That was from a hack.
It says pending payment.
Yeah.
So until that gets resolved, unfortunately, the information is not as readily available, posted on the website. Once IT department gets that resolved, they'll be able to get that stuff back up online. So that's what's going on. So,
We are making a change for the developers this month. You now have to send a copy that's redacted of anything that you submit, which means your plans and your emails and stuff like that.
a second set so we can strike that so it's not public.
Yeah, because that's what they're.
You'll appreciate that later. So, all right. Carol, thank you so very much.
Our
I
pleasure.
appreciate the time and some crafted letter. And well, I'm sure we'll be back in touch, but you're gonna put some type of response maybe so we can get it out to these guys?
Yeah.
We have a meeting next Monday. It is a voting session. It's August 10th at 6:30.
And you just remind me, where are we on this project as far as,
So
We need to
we're
vote on
making-
this issue Monday.
so then will there be visual changes, like actual visual changes that you would be submitting before Monday?
I think we need to just kind of regroup and strategize how much time we have between now and then to
Yeah.
reasonably put new visuals together.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's okay that we just distribute it through and then we'll make it public on Monday if there's anything that's.
Though even I can imagine, you know, addressing some of those items, right? Like, okay, here's an elevation of we're doing this, I'm gonna have my trace on there and be like, we're actually mixing this one, doing this one, we're gonna add a window here, we're actually gonna move this back, like,
Mhm.
I wonder if even some working drawings should be great, and then, you know, that could be put into the motion, our motion to approve with the edits and would that be appropriate, maybe, you know, even if it's kind of a working document?
Yeah, I mean,
fleshed out,
the,
visual.
I'd like to tie this down as much as possible. And I think, as with any motion, if we're citing any reason objection to it, I'd like to cite a specific ordinance of what specifically, why and what this is. Either, we're making a recommendation or not, but, we're gonna be incorporating, as usual, a lot of the engineers, whether it's, traffic, civil, or, top committees, the planners, letters.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. If you had edits, you could
Yeah,
provide your tweaks, let's
Yeah.
say, if you had a.
yeah, because once it leaves us, it goes through, smart growth and borough
Of
council.
course,
And
and if
then,
the architectural details are uniquely, there is not a second set of consultants that are going to do. Carol's
right,
is our consultant.
I would say the one sentence of the ordinance that was written in 2025, I am absolutely no lawyer, but the way it was written does sort of imply that there is a continued discussion, perhaps beyond the planning commission's vote, and that seems to be consistent with what you were suggesting that Brian thought, well, that could happen later. That's what you had.
well, we always have a preliminary / final,
Yeah.
so it comes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's no architect in the world who's ever got a set of construction documents done before, for planning commission, right?
Well, what I was,
And I would expect.
I think it's gonna be, I don't want to speak for Gabe, but I think getting the renderings updated is not gonna happen.
I wouldn't imagine, I mean, I wouldn't want to put that on.
Not even
everybody.
think, I know, it won't. He told me that's
Yeah,
impossible.
no,
But working on the elevations.
Yeah.
And addressing, like, so you can document, so you guys have something that says, here's the changes that we can make.
Just
Right.
so that the schedule, next week is the voting session. And then following that on the 12th, we go to Smart Gov. Smart Growth, markup the program.
So that's 2 days later.
Yes, 2 days later, so you'll go in there to put on the agenda for the work session meeting to get a final, or to get approval of the preliminary draft.
Right.
From the council, which I believe would be the 17th. But it would be the following. But just so you know the schedule that you are after
Yeah.
the preliminary approvals this month.
Got it.
Anything else? Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
I'm going to go a little bit out of order because Lisa is up against the clock, 19 o'clock. So this, I'm going to jump the, thanks, Pete. Thank you, Carol. Thanks, Gabe. Good seeing you.
very much. Thank you.
Keep doing good work in our borough. I think the, Lisa is here, and so I just wanted to, jump forward to the vape shop ordinance. All right, again, previously, there it is. The last time we saw it, you were not here, and Tom Esty was not here, so we haven't had really a good opportunity to talk with you. And if you could give us a 5-second overview, and then
had some comprehensive tour or something else.
Okay, I had,
Oh, okay.
it's basically just, I mean, I think you understand. It separates regular convenience stores from vape stores and puts additional restrictions around vape shops, location, things like that. And I think there were some questions that Aaron answered a bunch of the questions. I did watch the tape. The couple that were raised that I just want to clarify, there was a question raised about 500-foot restriction in a lot of ordinances similar to this. This was modeled after a lot of vape shop ordinances that exist. Are for 1,000. And the 500 is basically how long a block is. So that's how it came. You were concerned, Tom, about the discouraging convenience stores. No, this doesn't. It separates convenience stores from vape shops.
Right, corner stores, unfortunately, have become illegal.
Yes.
That probably happened 50 years ago, and because of our factor, actually we do see a number of them that still exist.
And in fact, the particular vape shop on West Washington has now, it didn't succeed as a vape shop, so they're reverting it back to a convenience store, which I think the neighbors will find much more appreciative. And then there was a question about residents living above the vape shops and why that was in. And that restriction was put in place for safety reasons. Vape shops store large volumes of lithium-ion batteries and highly concentrated chemicals that they refill that with. So that's what differentiates it from living above home, for instance. So as I recall, those were the main questions that were unanswered, whatever it is.
No, I think they were some of the points. I did have several one I wanted to talk to Tom about, because I think there's a big difference between tobacco and vape shops. And I think I don't know how to differentiate the two of them. And I think the vapes, and there was pieces missing here like the knots or those little.
Yeah, we're not including them because those have separate restrictions. The nitric oxide actually already does have laws. Are they difficult to enforce? But they do exist.
Yeah, because when you were going through, I was looking to see if the site was there still, because they were all over the website as well as some gaming.
Yeah,
maybe
no,
not
that's
necessarily legal either.
Gaming.
Okay, and I didn't want to necessarily accidentally encompass tobacco, like cigar shops that were legit, like just basically a cigar lounge, because people can't smoke anywhere. They need maybe a lounge or something.
That lounge, again, that's controlled by state law. You have to get a license, you have to get special inspections, everything else. This is not that.
Sure.
That does something.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of these popping up, and the intent there is if they legalize them, they're all set up to go there, so. But yeah, I think it was, my question was more for Tom, whoever crafted this.
I think it was Kristen.
Kristen.
Jenna was speaking if it's from her office.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't.
Their office.
To be fair, I don't even know what half of these things.
Oh, okay.
What's Kratom?
Unfortunately.
Don't ask me about.
Oh,
That's fine. It's a
dash.
There's another.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then I did see where this is right now, so the easy way, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, let me ask you, I was struck with the corner store thing when Thomas had brought that up. That's something, if we loop back around and try to make that happen, to be able to have those in the borough, right?
That would be
You okay with that?
Because what we're separating is convenience store, which is what those will be, and vape shops, which.
Sure.
That's gonna be a zoning issue.
Right.
If you're gonna try to do that, see, districts. And that's something that you're gonna have to rewrite, good section of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
as a non-conforming use, it's still allowed. That's why Washington Street can do it. Some of the other ones that are down southeast corner, sprinkled throughout the borough, that isn't going to initiate council. That's going to have to go through to open that back up to those areas.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to build. I'm gonna have to build a desire to do that because they're gonna be. Residential schools.
Okay. I mean, I'm just gonna,
Nothing.
But this is.
yeah, I'm just saying, that's great. It's just,
Oh.
yeah, I mean, it's great to be able to walk down to it and, you know,
Yeah, I think the convenience store here was gonna do, I mean, it was a convenience store before.
Yeah. I mean, down the shore, they have that problem. It used to be that you could have something within the same block to walk to. There was ice cream, there was waffles, whatever. And they've torn everything down just to make townhomes. Now they have all the homes and they have no amenities. And I'm thinking, you know what makes places great is these little tiny places gives opportunities for, and then again, that's why to Thomas's point, whether you live upstairs or not, I don't know who lives upstairs, but if you were an owner and you have one of the grocery store below, or if you had a bar in there,
Like I said, Vegas short things is concussed, which is very different. You better see the roadway with the fire. And that's why you can't put one vape in an airplane or cargo hold, you know, it's just too dangerous because water doesn't go down. That Avon fire extinguisher stuff. It's
Just very special.
it's very special. Yeah, there's a lot of what's considered a.
In the borough that I worked at, we had two lithium ion, but not Tesla. They had to push out. And that language, and that harsh was 23 hours. The second one was inside of the building. They installed 9 lithium ion battery backups with solar PV. At that time, there was a seminar in town demonstrating the use of the lithium ion extinguishers. And we were able to have 4 university fire police put out the fire that we had.
Yeah, and firefighters treat vape shop fires as hazmat fires combined with structural fires due to the massive volume of lithium ion batteries and toxic chemical stocks present on site. Standard structural firefighting techniques must be modified to manage the risk of exploding cells, runaway chain reactions, toxic smoke. It's water doesn't work. And also, once those things heat up, they become projectiles. They're like little tank bombs. So
That makes a ton of sense. I think most of my concerns were jumping on smoke.
oh, I know.
But obviously some are symptoms do, and I was immediately making the jump to alcohol. You know, so I think a lot of the language was I was not thinking into it safety concerns. So I was thinking of I walked with my children to St. Agnes. So there was a note in there about its proximity to St. Agnes, its proximity to schools, and I think of how grateful I am that we shut down East Street. And we have Kildare's less than Orion's less than 500 feet with residential above, adjacent to St. Agnes, adjacent to my kids, and I appreciate all of that. And so I was unsure of the intent there, especially given that unfortunately, I would argue unfortunately, we have made the historic corner store illegal and in doing so made so many areas food deserts. And so those concerns make a ton of sense. And I could also see, I think the ordinance, it's not, you can't buy your vape, it's just not 100% vape, right? It's something that's 20%, right? And so from that point of view, this could even be understood as a way of preserving the corner store, right? That it can't be completely taken over by this other industry. So it makes a ton of sense. I just had some questions around some of the things.
And I have, as Sheila knows, I have particular interest in fire safety shortly, because the last fatal fire here in Westchester, the day after Christmas, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Someone who died. So I pay attention. Anything else?
No, thank you so much for coming out and giving some clarification. We'll be seeing it on next week.
Yes.
Okay. Yes,
Please, the vote.
I meant
Right.
the motion, moving forward. Ed. Scott, you're up here with me.
Thanks for letting me.
Love it. Absolutely.
Okay, 615, 617 South Walnut Street. The last time we met, I know we have a zoning hearing board or something coming up, is it?
August 24th.
Yes.
Smart growth. We are required to do smart growth, and that's if they want us to send them. To related, we are not recommending that, but it's not. It's up to the council.
When is the smart growth on the 12th?
That is,
So that's first.
yes, then we'll go on, I think it's. So, to the work session.
Are we going to borough? We're not going to borough council for ZHB, right? Or is it?
No, once the smart growth says smart, they'll go to what's called,
Consent.
consent, thank you. Go to consent. And everybody's supposed to something.
We'll figure the consent out at work.
Yeah.
At work, and that's the 18th. So the
Smart
smart growth will make a recommendation. It's just 3 council.
Perfect.
So say we recommend you do this, then it goes to the full council the following week and they all discuss it.
Perfect.
And if we're all good with it, then it goes on consent. If we're not all good with it, then the next day it goes to another discussion.
Got it. Okay.
But I believe based on this, you'll be at smart growth. Then you kind of skip the borough council and go to the zoning hearing board. Then if you get the zoning hearing board cleared, then
Right.
we'll have another in betwbetween there back to us. Because then we can make a
You're going to
motion.
go to smart growth twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on the hearing board. And your lawyer was asking that question today. It's the emails. I was explaining.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So the first smart growth is just ZHP.
Yes,
Second smart growth, overall projects. Got it. Okay.
that's to get it onto the agenda for the work session.
I imagine we'll run through the projects at the ZHB meeting just so they're aware of what we're doing, right? As far as they need to. Okay.
And that, like Lisa said, it's just a subcommittee. not
Sure.
borough council. So you get 3 of us.
Sounds good.
All right, so I would bring your renderings, anything that's the plans, anything. that's-
Oh, yeah.
When is the Zoom?
The 24th.
24th,
Yeah.
fourth Monday, starts at 6 P.M.
Okay, thank you.
When will an agenda be out for that typically?
It doesn't go out to usually,
The week before.
there's only 2 things with it.
Perfect.
I believe your first was just.
That was my next question.
I believe your first was just signed.
Very good. Early bird gets the worm.
Yeah, there's another continuance, but I think we're continuing that until September, because we already had you 2 scheduled for next.
Perfect.
All right.
You want to?
So I guess since the last time we spoke to you guys, we have 3 review letters that we can just briefly touch on. We haven't done revisions to the plan yet,
Okay.
but I do think it's good to make you aware. I reviewed the reviews. I love saying that. Review the reviews. And I anticipate us adding 2 additional waiver requests on our next submission. One was Pinoni. Our infiltration bed is too close to a building. We knew that. We are doing a impervious liner in between. Pinoni in their review said, you will need to request a waiver for this. We support that waiver. So that's one of the requests will be just the stormwater system being and in close proximity to the proposed building.
And if I could just ask, where is the legislation?
Where, that's the long bed along the,
Yeah, where,
Oh.
where is the legislation here?
Waiver.
what section of the
In the
ordinance?
Saldo,
It's a south, it's a, yeah, it's a stormwater,
Section in the Zelda.
it's a stormwater, not the south. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It is, I mean, if you want to review I can tell you if they reference.
I was going to access the, I'm sorry.
Chapter
I got access the, so, I'm sorry.
Chapter 9.
Yeah, well, this is stormwater chapter anyway. Okay.
Yeah,
There's
so
many times where we're seeing variances, especially. if
these are
it's
waivers, not
waiver
variances.
size.
Yes.
Especially where a consultant is saying, yeah, it's fine, you're still gonna need the waiver, we just want to highlight those, keep track of them.
Yeah, that's
Every
why,
often it's the
well, that's
same.
why I'm bringing them up, because they haven't been on our cover sheet yet. They
Yeah.
weren't in the original request. But yes, our bed is closer to the building. than
What is the requirement?
I don't remember. I think it's 10 feet, but I'm not, I think it's 10 feet and we're only 7 or 8 feet.
But you're putting in a barrier.
Yes, they're
So as
requiring,
a civil engineer, do you think that it should just have a barrier, like?
I already had the
10 feet
barrier
or
in there.
barrier?
What's that?
Do you think it should say a 10 feet or barrier?
I mean, I've gone through this before where I've been too close and we put in an impervious liner. It's kind of a common way around, a common solution to being too close to a building. And when your bottom of your bed is not below the basement.
Right.
If the bottoms of our, actually Pannoni required us to get the basement higher so that the bottom of our bed is at basement elevation or lower. That is the goal for them to allow us to do the impervious liner method. Every municipality is different. Boroughs are usually closer, like 10 feet. Some municipalities are 25. Everybody does it different, and they have different context and fine print to your, how you get around it, basically.
Maybe the waiver is a dollar sign, so just, we're always
Yeah.
thinking about attainability and speed. So,
Yeah, so that is one waiver we're gonna add. Other one is for the site distance in the alley, which we attempted to get around in the Remington Vernick response by using the argument we suggested of an four-way alley intersection is a four-way stop, even though there's no stop signs. Well, they didn't go for that. There's no stop signs there, therefore we need to treat it as a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit site distance, which is 175 feet. We can't get that with our existing parking along Pat now.
Okay, that's good to know. We had a discussion, we did research on that. We did have, somebody had written for PennDOT, one of our local engineers.
You had a Pannoni report that you found or
Maybe it
something
was a report on exactly
on
that
something
condition
like that.
where alley intersections
Yeah,
should be understood as stop signs. And
Yeah.
then we also were looking at 2 or 3 different boroughs, maybe one borough, and a couple municipalities.
yeah, you shared all that with us.
Also, so I just want to keep track of that.
Yeah.
As well.
94-B06J. Actually, J.
That's the storm.
Yeah. Thanks.
DJ. That was it.
So then the second situation with the site distance. Basically what I'm gonna state on the plan is, the existing site distance this is the Willow Alley crossing, Patton. Site distance to the right, existing, if you count the existing parking is about 18 or 19 feet. If there's parked cars there. We're improving it to 88 feet by my quick estimation today. 175 is required. This existing parking area, we're making the existing parking area, we're shifting it down, making it smaller. So we are improving, our argument is we are improving the site distance, but I don't see any, way for us to get that 175 feet while maintaining, off-street parking for 617, Walnut.
Mechanics.
Yeah. So that was the main thing I just thought I'd bring up to you guys is that we're probably gonna request two more.
Just looking at all these cars back.
Yeah,
Yeah, these will be.
Okay.
All right.
so,
That should be easy.
all the comments, I don't anticipate any issues with. There's a couple I will have to just discuss with either Tom Committa's team or the Remington Burning team, to make sure we're doing it correctly. We want to just do it once, and not go back and forth. But I don't anticipate any issues with complying with everything. That was the biggest change that I wanted to bring up today.
Oh, the pea gravel.
Oh, yes, Tom committed, the other thing that I was gonna bring up is Tom committed's final comment on his review letter. They commented on the pea gravel proposed behind, along I guess it's the back of the units, between, the south side there. He just said we should discuss it with you guys. He doesn't think it's a good idea, as a patio surface. I haven't discussed it with Ted for another solution yet, but bringing it up, his comment specifically is that pea gravel is proposed adjacent to the brick walkways and the doors. We recommend the applicant discuss the proposed pea gravel with PC. Consider functionality and maintenance of proposed material. Can be a highly mobile material, could shift out into the brick walkway if there's not appropriate edging. We didn't get into the details of edging and potential binders to keep it in place or anything like that. He's just bringing it up as something to discuss with Ted and you guys, if there's maybe another solution to make that nicer while still being pervious back there. So I'm bringing that up.
That's one thing, yeah, we've talked about here is kind of these different materials, different textures, especially on like a private kind of courtyard area. So, I mean, I like pea gravel. I do agree, though, it can be kind of cumbersome. I mean, obviously, this is going to be an HOA community, so there'll be a fine gardening component to the landscape maintenance. So, like, to the extent there's weeds, that's all stuff that will be included as far as removal. But if there's another alternative, I would be open to. I mean, we talked about decomposed granite. I don't know the extent that that's permeable. Have you guys, as you know, seen anything else be successful?
I've definitely seen it accepted as permeable, but I can imagine also. Aaron, where do we have a list of materials that count as that permeable? Yeah, I know. I've definitely seen. I definitely, anytime you drive over it, right? Like the assumption is that it's
Yes.
but the gravel, like
From
the
what I've
PG.
seen, so states the gravel, if it is being used as a parking space, it's not to be considered.
That's what
What I was putting,
Yeah.
there are,
Seen the videos.
resin bound gravel,
Yeah.
right? So they use them at pool surfaces, driveways and stuff. And that,
They
Well,
used
you
it
don't-
along with too.
use it along with.
Oh,
That's it.
The resin bound?
So if you,
It's up near the conservatory. There's sections of it.
I mean, this will absorb water as fast as you can pour it on. If you
Right.
just took a bucket of water, dumped on it, it goes right through. But it is a stable product. It is basically any gravels that you can do. And there's a resin and impregnate the gravel into it. It counts as permeable. But that's where maybe something like that.
I know. I mean, like, there's so many good examples too. Helps. Like,
Right.
there's a couple patios all over the place. I mean, you're the ball.
Yeah. And I do think it's fair enough to say that there's something like, I'll just say a flush Belgian block or something.
Right.
Easier to string trim up against that. You're
Yep.
not shooting rocks. So,
Sure.
but you might be able to use combination. But there are a lot of impervious pavers, grasscrete or gravel.
The
Okay.
resin is really awesome. I've installed it in a couple of locations, but you do have to be careful with it when you're doing maintenance.
Okay.
And then we'll like break away. Like,
Yeah, it will promote.
Oh, like a asphalt rule.
There's a neighbor on Price, I believe, she did her driveway in it.
Yeah, the driveways.
Yeah, but she did have some problems with it when it was initially installed. But I've seen it done really successfully.
Yeah.
And,
No, I just thought it was an interesting comment because we've gone back and forth on different materials and textures, and I think that could be a good opportunity, even with some Belgian block, and then
mhm.
that would probably solve it. I mean, to the extent that we have either some sort of something going into our stormwater facility, because I don't love the idea of, even if you've got dirt and gravel and so the dirt will absorb some water underneath the traditional pea gravel. So like, it's so close to the house. That's one thing that we have to just consider because we've got full basements. But that's for me to figure out.
This is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's going to be inspected in 2 to 5 years. So there'll be an agreement with the borough. Our inspector,
Yep.
will check those. So that's part of one of the things.
Sure.
That's one right on Price Street. It's a driveway. Been there for a couple years. So to me, is what I like about it is it kind of gives the appearance of a gravel.
Right.
And there's lots of color on it. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, you can do all sorts of.
Yes.
But that's a couple of years old. I still think it's holding up relative to being able to be maintained.
Yeah, and this would just be a couple of chairs and, maybe a grill or something. That's pretty good after being driven on. I think that's a reasonable.
And she's got like the older teenagers,
Oh,
lots of
right.
cars going over that. Like, that's fine.
Used and abused.
Yeah.
Is that everything you had?
Yeah, that's all I had. I mean, as you guys just heard, going to the zoning hearing board this month. We anticipate, well, as soon as that's done, having revised plans submitted and to review with you guys at the next. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's our plan right now.
Is there anything we need to get you guys after ZHB other than revise the plan? I mean, the revisions that we have, we can do them now.
So I think we gotta, what else towards their comments.
Yeah.
Sure.
We just can't have emotions. We can't move something forward.
Sure,
now.
yep, 100%.
My only concern is the timeframe.
Yep, we talked, yep, no worries. Yep, all good. I think we'll,
Because we have to do requests, have other people look at it. It's only a week between.
yeah, that,
CHP.
I think that's fine. I mean, to the extent we can get you stuff and that way the group can at least get eyes on it, but prior to, we can address anything in between. That would be great. After ZHB, in between our next PC, so. Right, yeah. You saying you're getting tired of seeing me? Is that kind of okay? Okay.
Well, we just say that.
Yep,
I work with developers, every meeting, you're getting further and further away from team development. Cognizant of that.
appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Speaking of that.
I'm staying here.
Yeah. Thank you for coming back. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were here last month talking about, showed you guys one sketch plan for this. We brainstormed a bit. I sent you guys two other options. One was doing 4 units. Pretty much the same setup and idea that we first showed you guys. But we added, we did one doing 4 units, 18 feet wide, along the alley with it. I have a thumb drive with me if that's easier. I don't.
Let me look here. First on the spot, let's check it out.
It should be, 328, 332. You have a thumb drive?
See, if you go right below the Word document, right there.
That's one.
Yeah,
All right.
that might be.
This angle is not easy to see. That's on a.
There's file now.
Yeah. I got good news and bad news. Found it. I'm sorry, can you remind me?
Steve Seymour.
Steve?
Yeah.
I don't want to say, hey, you.
No problem.
Looks like it. Revised sketch.
It's not my thumb drive. Go ahead.
It's not.
No. But that's probably
It
it.
looks like it.
I'm super excited.
Yeah, those are the 2 plans, yeah.
That's weird. Okay, that was one, and this is two.
So the 2 sheets on each are the same. One has the aerial in the background, it's not. So that one we showed 4 units, 18 feet wide, stacked parking with 1-car garage. On that one eliminates all the existing off-street parking that is in Patton Alley currently, where you can see those red car, the cars in the background there. And that one proposes 4 new. Or no, I have 3 spots and 2 spots. So in that one, we're proposing 5 off-street spots in the inner courtyard area. And then we don't have any details, but we would do some type of courtyard landscaping in there, in the middle there, in between the parking and the new houses. And then the other one is just doing 3 units, maintaining the parking in Patton Alley for 328 West Washington, maintaining the 2 spots for them, doing a walkway all the way down. And that one, we also are proposing 5 off-street spots in the inner courtyard for the existing units use. So those were just 2 options we're throwing out to see if you guys had comments on those 2. I know you really liked the existing garages that are just east. Those, I mean, their setup's totally different. They're got giant paving in the middle. We can't have that in order to get parking for new houses. We can't, match their setbacks basically what those garages are doing north, which do look like little interesting tiny little buildings. I agree. So yeah, these were just 2 brainstorms we came up with.
Sure.
Alternative to what we first showed you guys.
I mean, I go back.
I guess we're looking for feedback from
Sure.
these 2.
And I think these 2, I'm just gonna say from a planning standpoint, are kind of the same thing. You're
Yes.
parking on one side of it, and then you're providing parking through this drive.
So you're creating presumably like other units here smaller,
Yeah.
but that you're still fitting under your 35 with the 5,000 and up lot size. Is that correct?
I mean, 35 feet high building.
No, 35% building
Oh,
coverage.
yes, yeah,
That's why your units are shrinking.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 35% is pretty much.
Yeah. And my initial thing was, one is some of the neighbors and their driveways, they kind of split. They just have 2 concrete strips and they have the grass in between. I think when you're a pedestrian walking along that street, that's pretty nice to have the grass and then just to have the strip. I think this one unit had the porch or something extends out into that existing area right now. I think
Yeah.
that's pulled back a little bit. I think when I was saying of this, my objection before, my thought of what should need more study was, these units are kind of between cars. And my thought was kind of trying to create a more of a, if you're going to create a community where there's opportunities to exist, one of them is your neighbors face this street. It's almost like you could make something along in between here. That's one. And then this one was, should we move this parking to the backside, consolidate the parking, at least have one cleaner side, I would just say. And that's why I was thinking maybe split it up. Thomas, did you do any sketches on this particular?
I did, it's part of like I have a couple different things, because we're also gonna talk about, the Gay Street property. So it kind of fits the, maybe a wider conversation about that, 35% coverage. I can share roughly just a couple images that.
Sure.
Which.
Biggest slide.
So.
Just have to grab it. Other time.
So, that's.
I can't see this.
Not very big.
No.
Good job.
I mean,
That's
that one's mine. That one's,
the one.
that one's mine. So it's not D with Tom, just with.
Yeah, that
Oh, there.
Planning Commission.
I can't see anything.
Right next to it, right?
No, you were on it, that one.
There.
This one?
No.
That one. Here's back to sports.
Do this. Today's date. And then you go to page.
It doesn't look. So.
The second one down.
Into the mouse doesn't work right.
Yeah,
Which one?
second one.
Sorry about that. The mouse is not.
You have to have the more flat. And so you can just do that, go to Q and then like full screen, and then let's go to, just.
I can't see. Here, let me try. I can't see anything.
I get it.
Sorry, guys. So.
I think it's too far.
Technology is one.
Zoom with the plus and minus in the middle.
Let's get now. You're on the exact guy. So we're just gonna scroll down. Oh, that's nuts. I don't know that.
Just jumped ahead, man.
Oh, you got it.
We're back to it.
There, that's right.
Don't move. Nobody move.
There is that. Okay, so there's our side. That's what we had last week, right? Right. And you can scroll. So you can scroll down to the next page. Okay, so you're dealing with the same. You go up, and I highlighted. You have that building coverage issue. Can you zoom out to the page? One minus click.
It's in the center. Down,
I don't see the mouse.
right there. That's plus,
Yeah,
go there.
you go. One click, there we go, okay. So you've got that 35%, that's what we're seeing in your new sketch plans, that you're responding to that.
Yeah.
You can scroll down to the next image, that's the same issue obviously we saw on this project right here. And we were talking about that with this saldo update, the intent of that larger site having the lower building coverage. Obviously, there's impervious coverage that's also fluctuating in there at the same time. You can scroll to the next image. So this is part of like a bigger conversation about preservation. And let's just, we'll cover that in a second. So I was playing around with your site just a little bit. I think one of the things, so what I attempted to do on the right there is interchangeable with that square footage. So you did the same thing. You have 4 units over there. Take away the 2 little units in the middle. You scroll down actually, one more. I've got square footage on one more, sorry. Yeah, over there. So there's your, 35% of your 15,859, you get 550, that's the additional building square footage. So the ones on the right are actually a little bit over, but you can obviously tweak that down. So I'm doing the same thing you were. I do think that there's opportunities to think through the paving, which obviously you would be doing that at some point and coming up with like some kind of central feature, the walkways around. I think moving the building fronts, adding some variety there, there's value, even though that's, people could push back and say, hey, we want a solid building wall adjacent to our alley. There's an argument for that too. But I think, playing with some of the same things we did on that last plan, we bring those garage doors inboard, right, of the building.
So that, what you're showing there is like the recessed garage with like balcony.
That's with different size units. Partly, when we're thinking about attainability, it's leaning into some of these smaller unit sizes. So there's diversity of unit size. Obviously, there's some cost there, right? You're not repeating the same plan over and over. It does value to keep those 2 grandfathered parking spots in there. I'm all the details that we've just been talking about with the other projects are kind of blurred out by my tree line, but obviously you'd be thinking about, right, like you're cutting, like what's that distinction between an alley and your drive, that line of Belgian block there. You're gonna have to do, so if we have 41% building coverage and you have 50% with this lot size impervious, almost all of your paving is gonna have to be impervious, right? And so coming up with nice purpose pavers or even the resin that we were just talking about there. But I also wanted to play around with, in this part of a bigger discussion, the preservation ordinance. We have examples of development where, right now it's, there's a conversation, in the ordinance, there's a requirement that you have primary facades on the street. You can utilize the alley with secondary or with facades once that is met. But looking for these opportunities, I think, for maybe even tucking buildings, from a fire point of view, 150-foot fire hose can get you from here, all the way back into here. So all of this meets all the fire standards. But thinking about creating kind of that cottage court space here, still meeting your parking requirements and introducing some of these smaller building types would be an interesting thing, though it does take you over that 35% coverage right there, standard 41. So it should be something to think about when we're thinking about attainability. And earlier on, one of the points I was making is I was working on a project in Tulsa last week, and somebody made this comment. You often hear about the changing household demographic sizes. Like 1 person, 2 person, whatever. One of the things I had not heard is bedroom size. And so that was an interesting stat to look into. The quote I heard was over 60% of households in America are 1-bedroom households. So when I was drilling into that, I don't know where that stat's coming from, but it is like 65% of households are either 1 or 2 person. And so maybe they're extrapolating out from that. At the same time, new single-family houses, right, 88% have 3 or more bedrooms. And then only 11% of single-family homes complete in 2025 were under 1,400 square feet. And we look at the fine-grained fabric of New Street, Darlington, or something like that. And so I think finding this, or you think about Elbow Lane, I think Elbow Lane up in Ward 1, these neat moments. And so Elbow Lane's an example of here's a home that fronts onto a private drive, right? It doesn't have frontage actually on a street or alley. Or you think of Rayot and CJ Frederick's development right over by Burger, I think over you, right next to Burger King site. Those are homes that don't front onto that. So I think that's part of a larger conversation. But I guess I would just encourage, I think it's a great project and maybe moving those buildings kind of in and out and varying their sizes allows for a little bit more dynamic feel both on the alley and inside of the block. And, maybe playing around with this, you get more smaller units.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Steve, were you thinking selling, renting?
The plan was to sell these,
So,
maintain it, like keep the existing ones in the front and then sell the ones in the back.
okay. And so, Thomas, if I'm reading this correctly, you're thinking there are 6 units in here? How many units do you have? The new,
Are those just garages or are those?
that is units, well,
Yeah, so if you scroll up to, well, no, it's not scrolling, but up higher, I just carried floor plans with it.
Yeah.
But one of the things I would want to point out, no, I'll just stay on it for now, I'll just explain. I mean, it's pretty clear. Top under is always, if you're gonna have 2 parking, you have to provide per unit. I mean, an argument could be, don't provide that, but I think while we're still providing 2 parking spots per unit, from a mechanical point of view, top under does make a lot of sense. It's also the case that people need storage, so half the time, if you got 2 parking spaces and you only have 1 car, let's say it's a single bedroom home, you have a little at-home office maybe in the ground floor. So I think there's rationale to have that garage anyway from the developer's point of view. But any of these are, the little guys are, like the guy on the top there is, if that's 365 square feet, it's a 3-story, you've got a little living, little, 1-bedroom suite up top, and the rest of them are, small 2 bedrooms. These are the same building types we'll see in a second that I was just, again, just for conversation, that was throwing, we were looking at on the Gay Street project. And so we'll have clear square footages to talk about.
yeah. I don't know what Steve thinks, but I think the courtyard's awesome inside. And I also think the fact that you, I'm gonna say on the lower portion of the page, still created an opportunity along the neighbors, kind of give them some relief, and I think surrounded an area, minus that fence area, if you could open it up, would be a nice space for a little bit of relief.
So, right, and it's following all the setbacks, right? And the standard setbacks that you would outline,
So really, and that takes care of advantage of that arch that exists along, what's that, Washington?
That's right.
I love that end of that sidewalk there. So let me,
and I think, just like you had drawn, the significance of having, unlike the Burger King project where in the rear, you just see the sea of vinyl garage doors, right? You have utilized the driveway as one of your spots, right? So now you're only doing the tuck under for 1, and the more prominent or as prominent opening there, hopefully, is the man door, right? And so that's where your light is, that's where your threshold is, that's where you're trying to make that presence on you. Well, I think didn't do a good job of, but you.
I think it's great. I think the idea though is, size-wise, though, I think it's really appropriate. And, a lot of people miss the opportunity to be on that smaller size, unit, a smaller quality, little, communal type of living. And I think where this property happens to be, I think this makes a lot of sense. And I think we've seen spots where a larger, more expensive home has been put into a space that probably can only support something smaller. And so I think something like this, very appealing too. And it really still is, probably a younger person's thing than older. I still
You
wanna-
guys keep
we're
telling us
still
to add
trying-
more units. We
we're
gave
still
it
trying to
3,
take
you
care-
said 4.
we're trying to take care of all the old ladies.
All the old ladies need a spot.
We need all the old ladies in the borough, so these are downsides and stay in the borough. That's what
Yeah.
we're trying to
That's gonna build it.
Oh, excellent. So we have, have both ends of the spectrum there, and especially to get a foot in the door in home ownership and to find something, a nice right size unit that.
I would have never thought of this plan for sure. Thank you very much, because it's
It doesn't meet our zoning,
Not-
so.
Really,
yeah.
But I think the idea, I think there's a lot of positives to it that even with the 6% or whatever it might exceed, I think it's worth maybe pursuing and getting, we'll have our support on this type of development.
Is that the only thing that's not correct in the building?
I believe so, but I'm hoping that we have a chance, I know it's already 8:21, but when we go through the game, if not, maybe I put this together as part of the preservation ordinance conversation.
Yeah.
And so I do think like there's some things leading up to this that we can cover at a later time.
And we have Matt.
That's right. So we're gonna look at that case street.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if Steve wants to stay for Matt's, but,
Oh, maybe.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I do have to go pick up my son, but, yeah, no, I mean, I'll stick around till like probably like 8:40.
No pressure.
Yeah.
It's on tape. It's on tape too.
Yeah, but mine is, I think, with the goal is to find something like this, I think would really contribute something nice. I think it's a nice approach and it would be worth pursuing. I think very limited lemonade, I say that. It turns that into a really nice little livable space there.
Can I ask a question? How many rental units do you have in each of them?
So the one on the top, the existing one that's starting from the top down, it's 328. That's a twin. And then you have 330. That's a single family twin. So two of them. And then the lower building is a duplex and it's a top bottom. So two bedrooms. So there's four total. And each twin is 4 bedrooms.
That's a big variety on one little plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thought there though was,
I mean, does anyone else have any feedback on this? Just because it's very outside of what we had looked at before.
Yeah.
And,
I think we're pretty close. This is very personal.
yeah, but it's way.
It's like, it's a little bit more nuanced, but
Yes.
it's the same, your V2, your version 2 was
It was 4
4
units.
units, smaller units, and I would
Yeah.
just suggest as you're playing around with that, leaning into varying that facade front a little bit.
Is it possible, just off the top of my head, I understand that you maximize the amount of buildings in this location, but you're just taking a lot of the time that you would probably should easily,
If you took those two little guys.
just one,
No, you have to take those two little guys, so.
you have to take both. of them.
Yeah, the math's up top there. Actually, even the 4 that I did right there, I drew them in and then I did the math and it's exactly over. So, because the additional building square footage over existing is 2235. And the 4 buildings along the alley are 2327. So you've got a little bit of, it's already a little bit too much there. I do think that's part of the conversation though. I think that we've been having internally for a while and I'd love to continue as part of the preservation ordinance, citing that other plan that also wasn't meeting, it's these smaller lots can, but the others don't. And even if you were to accept, hey, let's accept this 50%. The last thing that we want is more impervious, right? But if we can meet the 50% and still allow more smaller buildings that are going to be attainable housing, it seems like a win-win.
The size of this lot is what, 50,
15,840.
15, 50?
Yeah.
So doing the math, I'm
Yeah.
off 8,500.
Yeah, and my math is all the aerials, but the existing houses is 3303. So yeah, you're
Yeah,
you're allowed.
I just feel.
Yeah. And mine is using aerial photography. So
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I think that we were complaining about everything being so blocky and big and uniform, and this is the opposite, which could be a really beautiful thing. Whether you do one of your plans or this, whichever makes more sense in the long run, but I think creating spaces where varying family types can live together is an asset.
Alan, thoughts?
Thomas Parks again.
Big fan of Thomas.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
It's exactly like Steve drew, so.
Just sketching something.
Just came up exactly the same thing.
Well done.
All right. Anything else, or do you have any questions? No, I mean, this is a good.
Mm-hmm.
Because they speak a lot about trying to
Influence.
project different
I
sides.
feel like it. We can work, we can take.
Draw different people's work.
That's the first developers to take aspects of. You said you do have some floor plans. Do
Yeah. Well,
you want to send me a bill or? No, I'm just kidding. I'm
well,
just
I would
joking,
say,
but, yeah.
obviously,
'Cause
you mentioned,
I was-
like, we're only looking into it.
Right.
You mentioned, yes, I do have the 4 plans in mind with this,
I would just be
elsewhere in
curious,
here,
yeah.
It's the same floor, or most of the same floor plans we're gonna see in second on the other side, you know,
Okay.
just like whatever basic floor plans. But I think in general, it's kind of a conversation for planning commission really to figure out, are we gonna try to push, suggest to borough council that we rethink the building coverage
Right.
while at the same time maintaining,
The impervious, yeah.
yeah, making sure that it's only gonna be a net positive from a stormwater management, because you had already mentioned hopefully being able to capture even some of the water from the existing structures.
Yeah.
Whatever you do on the site, it's gonna be pushing it, already in the right direction.
Yeah.
From a stormwater point of view.
But this is a case where those materials, especially that corridor, are extremely important.
Right.
I mean, so it's a little more dense, but you gotta pick the quality up. You gotta pick the
And I think that's part of our conversation of like, hey, we really want to push for some of this development, but the strings attached would be the quality, it would be, you know, it needs to be brick, it needs to be, you know, it needs to be.
I mean, just as an idea, like zero hit like Alpha Sound. I mean, look at the surfaces of the street, the curves, the buildings, and then the quality in and around it there. So we're not trying to put up a big vinyl type boxes again. We're trying to do something that is just, I think you do something like that in a really quality way. And you get a real big draw for people to see, and walk through and buy, more importantly. For you.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your creativity. And I appreciate the feedback. So, yeah, I'll lean in on Scott's expertise. Yeah, we'll take that to probably come up with a formal submission in the future. All right.
Yeah, and I think we'll just have, if you want to, in between there though, the only thing really was building was, impervious coverage. Right?
Yeah.
Building coverage.
Building coverage.
Building, yeah.
So in between.
Yeah, obviously we can't do that exactly.
Just gotta fix that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely.
We can
since as conversation, we've seen now a couple of projects that we value, where that's been a sticking point, where it's not, you know, it's not the case that we're sacrificing, you know, impervious area, given the zoning, that's not the hard line, so.
All right.
Very good.
Thanks. Want to grab that?
Yeah, that might help our mouse operation here. Steve, thank you very much. Yeah, thank
Two. Thanks for being in there.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you again. Sorry, you're at the end of the. We're gonna move you first now.
It's all right. Got a good education. Learned a lot.
Can we scroll to page 7?
We will try.
But did I take out the one that? No.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, page 7.
Page 7.
Yeah. Yeah, we can, so you can just scroll up so we can see.
Which one's page 7? Top one.
What's the next one up?
Yeah, the next one, I'm sorry. Or next one down. Yeah.
We're up.
So you had already presented this.
Yep. Yes, so this was what we have. Currently, we are approved to build 2 of these townhouses. Take the one existing lot, split into 2 lots. And we did this a few years ago. So then we look, you know, with the borough expanding and trying to find different ways to redevelop the property and look at what's there now. The buildings are built on the lot lines. There's a significant more impervious coverage that exists now. But to abide by the zoning back in 2021 or 2022, everything had to shrink. It's like, well, now you have just two standard row homes. And
That's the healing standard wrong, you know, it's great to see it. But like, if you were to build this now, it seems like that would be a win for the borough in a lot of ways, right? And we were, you know, we've been the, you know, it's the funny thing that, right, like the towns like us don't have like an actual, like a plan, right? Like whose job it is to be forward thinking or mostly reactive. So we've been trying to do a little bit of that in-house. And so we've been working on, you know, how do you, there are no strings, as you know, outside of the heart on materiality, on quality, on design. And so how do we really promote the character and quality of the borough in new development? And that's part of the comp plan, really being the comp plan talks about, hey, preservation and new development should be, we should have a strategy that's both of those things at the same time. And so you were saying, I've got this site, I can do a twin, but maybe there's something that's more appropriate for the borough. And if you stay on that one for a second. I'm not putting you, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. One of the things though, also that we had talked about on the phone, we need more information on, because we're always trying to think about attainability, housing prices, and you understand that better than we do right now. And so just guessing at, okay, you got the dirt costs, you have your other costs, you know, I added up, we're looking at 2,454 square feet here, not including that porch or the optional roof deck, I think. And so I'm guessing at a sale price, but I think we talked about something close to that. Again, just complete ballpark. But if we're thinking about attainability, there is a twin new construction, you're probably over $1 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sale.
Yeah.
Right. Which
is pushing it in the borough, in that end of the borough, to get 1.1 or 1.2 would be a stretch. And
so
that's where we
I did math 500, assuming, you know, I'm thinking of all our rolling costs. I got to 1.2. I think when we were just chatting about, hey, attainability, those numbers seem to check out. And that checks out for some of the other projects we've been seeing. And also the Jim, you've been working at this project on MATLAB, right? Mm-hmm. And that project's on market for.
Man, it's almost 2 years now.
And I think so. The other stat that I had in here, maybe I can just read it again. This is the over 60% of households in America are one-bedroom households, and almost everything we build, you know, 88% had 3 or more bedrooms. Your townhouse here, which makes sense. The zoning is pushing you in this direction, right? This is the one thing you're allowed to do, and it's a great house. Probably would be contributing to the borough, but I just wanted to point out you have what you got the big suite on the 2nd floor. And then you have 2 other bedrooms on the 2nd floor. And then you have a bedroom and a loft. So in some sense you have, I mean, you call it a loft, but it could be another bedroom. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bedrooms. 4 plus.
Yeah, it was 4, yes.
Yeah, I'm just counting, the loft is the same size as your bedroom on your 3rd floor.
Yes.
So you've got those 5 big bedrooms,
right.
Or big rooms in between there. And just that bottom stat, one of that percent of single family homes completed in 2025 over 1,400 square feet. So you reached out and said, hey, you know, it sounds like we're planning commission talking about some interesting things. And so I drew some things just so we could have further that conversation. Maybe you can scroll that next image. Yeah, the lean forward, it's out of its
range.
Yeah.
There. Oh. Right there.
So this is the, and you looked at these, and you guys all looked at last week, so I won't belabor it. I did change this a little bit, but we were just looking at 600 square foot. Now, these are not meeting the side yard setbacks right now. It's meeting the front yard, which is what your building did, and then it's matching. Like you said, you actually have structures that go to the property line on the side yards. So I pulled them in probably 3.5 feet, 3 feet for code and then 6 inches for buffer.
Mhm.
So that's probably, I'm guessing, I'm not quite sure, right? But I pulled them in probably 3.5 feet. So you're seeing, 600 square foot units, but specifically single story, Fair Housing Act accessible. You could make them ADA probably to, get rid of that kitchen the way it is and make it an L-shaped kitchen.
Right.
You're not meeting your parking. You're not meeting your side yard setbacks, but it could be intentionally designed for seniors. Could you scroll to the next image? We're often talking about the fact that it's hard. How do we help incentivize intentional senior housing that's integrated into the neighborhood? We looked at this example on the top right. This is from a project in New Haven, and it's looking at precedents in the Netherlands and Belgium, but you see it's single story housing, 0 threshold, ADA accessible around a common courtyard. So you can see on the Gate Street project, hey, you get 5 units, like the Bernard Street project here. You've got the units on the side, the one facing the end, and then a little bit of parking on either side, right? So it's a model that you have just a few blocks away. Now that one's 2 stories. If you just scroll to the top, I'm sorry, just to the top of the page. I just want to hit that again. This is just from the comp plan notes that put there all street. It says with a growing senior population, elderly residents will likely find it increasingly difficult to stay in the borough. We know that to be true. And so it's a neat visual, and I do think that there could be strong arguments for lowering some of the parking requirements. We currently have a 2 parking spot per dwelling unit. It could make sense to not have that if it's a single bedroom, smaller unit, specifically for a senior population. And then if you go down to the next level, you already saw these, and these are the same footprints we can see, or mostly the same footprints as we saw in the other plan. So, if that bottom small unit, I'm holding that maybe just a little bit past the existing structure, but there's an existing structure, right? There are 3 structures currently in the lot, right? The big single story home and then the 2 accessory structures. And I'm holding those edges of the buildings I'm placing, but also thinking about how do you move into this site? How do you create a courtyard? How do you move through? But it's not following NC2 side yard setbacks, it's just existing setbacks.
For principal structures.
Principal it is, you're right. Yeah, I'm holding the line that you guys had already put in place. But the side yards, it's just meeting it's actually a little bit better than existing, but it's not meeting the 10 foot. And the rear is now front for the other Walnut Street, right? Like if there are buildings on that, that's now in front, so it's not meeting that. And you're also not getting all of the parking you would need either, but it's if we're exploring smaller housing, and if attached to this, we're quality standards of, it's got to be brick, it's got to be these other things, then that's where we're interested in exploring. Just scroll down. So 2nd floor, 3rd floor. If you just keep scrolling, you've already seen this. I put the square footages on these units here. So, and I did that because we just looked at that, or I just quoted that stat. Only 11% of single family homes completed in 2025 were under 1,400 square feet. And so I just put the square footage on there, right? This is the 11%, the bottom, the smallest 11% of new housing in America. I'm showing up thinking about a table. I'm thinking about, okay, you've got dirt, you've got your other things. The twins are 1.1, 1.2 million. If you can get 5 units on there, some of them can be smaller. I'm guessing at, okay, well, how does that lower some of the prices there? You can look at, just scroll up one, sorry, right there. And that is, you just see the smallest one, right? That's 640 square feet, just a little 1-bedroom home. And, you keep your eyes peeled in the borough. You see little examples like that. Obviously, we have the carriage houses, but even homes on a couple of our main streets, quite small. So that was it. You've already seen most of it. I added a few stats. You saw the courtyard from that other project. You can imagine, like from that image right there, what you could do to some of those interior spaces.
Well, what about stormwater management?
Right. You'd have to utilize something in the center of that. It would have to be,
Okay.
the twins would also require stormwater management probably, right?
Yes, and that's where they're jammed in the center. You're using back, front.
Right. I mean, there's room for stormwater management, I'm sure. Obviously, that's a huge cost when we're talking about attainability, but we want to make sure that we're not contributing to the neighbors flooding. So.
No, 100%. And if you look at it now, there's more impervious and currently existing on the
In the
lot.
existing site.
I mean, it's impervious from the left side of the lot to the right side of the lot.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All the way in the back.
Any of these plants have upside a lot.
Right.
Right.
So it is an improvement from the pre-existing condition.
Right.
So,
from our point of view, I would say your accessory structures, interesting to see them there, and I think it does add some kind of forming to the alley, but from an architectural, from a detail point of view, they're not contributing really to the character of the borough. So I think demolishing them.
all right.
That right there. So
What's that?
It's, yeah,
The buildings.
yeah,
All those ones.
that's correct.
Technically, there's 4 buildings.
Concerns about
See,
the alley,
you can fit a bunch of buildings on it.
Thomas? Because technically that's not conforming.
That's right. So that was part of
That was
my rationale for putting it there and part of the conversation. Like in this case, I think you can get it to work. Like all the buildings that I placed have actually made the
So
condition
if you have a
better.
non-conforming building on a conforming lot, you can
Right.
tear that down and rebuild it in a different way.
Right.
As long as you're staying within, I think, the footprint cannot go beyond 25% of all seats.
And in this case, it would be making it even better. So I think in this case, in this lot, it would work. And I did want to talk with you about that. And I made sure when I was placing those, that I was bringing all those lines in. But I do think it's part of a larger conversation too, just about, hey, if it wasn't non-conforming, our birds with all the
It's gonna depend whether it's a non-conforming lot, whether it's a non-conforming building, whether it's non-conforming use. Non-conforming use is up to what, so it depends on whether it's non-conforming building. With a conforming use, because I think it's 112.810 deals with all of our non-conformities and it breaks it down by lot size, by lot type, by building type. So depending on what's going on, you're gonna be restricted to either building inside the original footprint or going to be restricted to 25% more than what was there previously. And some of the setbacks and so forth may not really be affected here, because if I'm looking at this correctly, on towards the front of the building, that building there is more conforming than.
Can you pull up my drawing?
So in the back becomes more of an issue. That's your non-conformities, so you're gonna have a lot more.
That's fine right there. So right now,
That's great, that.
trying to find the building line. So the building line in this case looks as if, here it's actually not the steps of 6, right? But everything is inside of that. In this case, I think the building line is those dash lines are overlapping. So it's the property line here. And I believe, to your point, it's the property line here. And then it's all of these structures are within, which maybe for this lot, that's one conversation, but I also think we should talk about just in general.
I'm just looking at this lot.
Yeah.
I'm looking at
Yeah.
But that's your guys' challenge, I think, in the future, but it's just to look at what's going to happen. But you do have some abilities within the phone, so you might be able to look at it.
Okay.
That might allow something like this, I'm not saying this exactly, but something like this to fit better into your thing, to maximize the space that you have on the lot. I can't guarantee it, but I'm willing to look into it.
Let me ask Matt a question. I mean, if, because I'm just gonna take this from an attainability standpoint. The idea here is to drive down the cost. If we have a single block, one stair that feeds like 4 flats, and you had 3 stories, right? So you had 12 units, right? So say each unit was like 700-800 square feet.
small. 700 square foot per floor, so you maybe have four of them, it's like 2,800 square feet. We're feeding on one stair. Right? Then you're able to get 3 stories because that's all it's, you're allowed to have that
Oh,
with
single stair.
with a single stair. So I'm trying to figure out where is it that you would be able to see a dollar savings in construction, because one of these was more of a single floor, and that costs a lot of money relative to foundations and roof and exterior versus if we went up. So that's not necessarily, though I think it's a viable, good option, I think, is there a way to get a flat or something in a smaller way that allows you to drive the cost of those, like you were selling, drive that down?
We did look at that a little bit. That goes back to the drawing that I think I originally gave you. But then when we got to a certain unit count, it was a lever for like sprinkler systems.
Sure.
And all types of different building standards, like 2 stairwells.
Right.
Because there's only so many units that you can feed with 1 staircase.
Well, that's what I maxed out. Yeah, so once you go beyond that, you need that second stair. Once you go beyond that second stair, once you connect it with the car, it becomes,
You're commercial code.
it goes into, and that's why all of a sudden those buildings need to be enlarged to support that. So what I'm trying to do is those single blocks, those stairs, even if you had in Chicago or somewhere, they did that and had 3 stairs, each stair only fed 12 each and created, courtyards but you're still getting cost out because you're saving, like in Canada and Europe, they don't have that same corridor and second stair. It's that second stair that drove it. Really, there was a fire that happened one time I'm going to say it was 14 stories because I can't remember. And from the 3rd floor up, nobody can get back down that stairs. That's what drove the cost. So now that's where the height comes from, the distance. But so that's kind of there. But now we have sprinklers and non-combustible and different construction types that have improved that. So, but at the same time, the real goal when we're looking at this is, can we get something that's offered less than the average cost of a house in the borough?
Well, also contributing to the character of the borough.
While also contributing to the character of the borough. So it's kind of, I know we want it all, but I mean, it's really, does this help to consolidate and go up like a triplex or a quad or flats? Are there unit types?
I'd have to dig deeper into it. I don't know if I can answer that offhand, but to your point of building to that, it looks like it contributes to the. So it does contribute to the look of the borough, but like, does it have to be solid masonry all the way through, or can it just look like it's masonry on the exterior?
Sure.
Like there's, I mean, that's getting down to the nitty-gritty. It's more.
Really good, but
There's different ways to make things look when the insides are done a little bit differently for efficiencies of buildability.
Jim, I think, on our end of that, as soon as you talk about consolidating units, you're talking about parking, Okay, so right now, I'm showing 6 units, I'm showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parking spots.
And
So that's part of like our.
And I agree with you that if you're gearing this towards, I'll just say a senior crowd, and you're saying, hey, it's 1 car per unit. Like it's a 1 bedroom, it's 1 car. Makes sense to me. And then you're saying this is a purposeful attempt at an attainable unit. So it's 20-30% less than market is bearing or whatever. But you don't get that by building 1 unit at a time. It's the land cost here that's
one of the big drivers, right? I mean, per square foot is just also really high. I think one thing that I should have done didn't, but I just want to have it now. Like I think there's the movement through the space. I think is pretty nice. Like this front door, right? Or like you have these 2 doors, and this is a 2-story structure. Let's say so. When you're on the alley, you're kind of divided into space. Let's say this car
is that the alley to your left?
Yeah. Let's say the car is here, and you pave this because you're trying to make sure you have pervious pavers. You got some, granite blocks, right, or whatever. and you're looking down, you're looking at that, and you're looking at two-story structures kind of pulling you in, and then this jogs right, so you come in, and then you can move sideways, and then you move in, you've got your garden here, and this also allows you, so you're playing these front doors, offsetting doors. Same thing here, right, coming in, you've got multiple massings that are creating this very formed but still somewhat organic space here, and you can think of, you know, just up the street from you, you got the brick wall with the brick archway. You know, you could start to incorporate some of those elements in either of the plans. But I do think that's something that we're also looking at is there are some good examples of that in the borough, and how do we try to, how do we promote that in new development?
Do you think, now this obviously goes above the 35% building lot coverage?
So this is, I mean, we need to be talking about that, which is why I drew this. This is less than your current coverage. So that your site is unique in that you're already non-conforming. And so that's a further conversation with Aaron about where that goes. So in this case, it might be grandfathered in. But yes, I do think that that's something we need to be
Wouldn't be
talking about.
grandfathered, and you still would have to get something, but you would have a significant reduction
Sure.
from what, it's kind of like the 210, 214. When they have to go to the series in here, where they keep the 8, make it a little larger. One of the things that sold it is that things went from 85% coverage, impervious, or building coverage, down to 49.
Yeah.
So it depends on what your coverage is, but I would say, because you have the 3 parking spaces are just parking spaces, correct?
Correct.
They're not under roof.
Right. Yeah, no, and to your point, I mean, I like this, and I like the 2 and 3 stories, and I like that space it creates. I think the location of this place, that would be a smart idea. It's a good to create that. I think once you're in there, you kind of disappear and leave where it is. And I think that's my concern from your standpoint is because I just checked that the 734 whatever on South Matlack is still for sale. And so they built 4 units. It's just they've been sitting on the floor a very long time, and every time you look at it, yeah, for a year, you keep cutting the prices. And then that's what I don't want to see. And ours was, can we build a more right size unit? Like I think this is perfect. I'd go with it, but but I think I'm not paying for it. We're building it. We're trying to sell it. And so, but I do think the impervious coverage is one, and the reduction in parking is also one. But I think if you're gearing it towards, like I say, elderly or who we're going for, or an attainable, maybe for a younger, I would like to see it be able to an opportunity for people to step into the housing market as opposed to one person buying it, turning it into a rental or something. But I like the potential there. The only reason I was asking about the other one was trying to understand what actually would help you. Well, if you were saying what actually makes this person, what can I do here?
Right, because you brought up roofs and foundations. You understand this better than I do. But I would think that single story structures are so simple. If you're doing 5 of them and it's the same floor plan, and maybe you're partnering with, maybe it's more than just accessible units on market. Maybe there's a senior healthcare component to that there might be something there, and your cost per unit is relatively low, and you get 5 units out of it. It's going to be a lot. Obviously these units, these 6 are more expensive per unit by a bit.
Yeah.
But depending on your market and what your rental is or for sale, maybe it's a wash, and your foundations, they cost something, but like it's not the biggest.
But you're right. I mean, it's still what you net out of it.
That's right.
It's not the gross.
That's right.
But I think the opportunity to have 6 units there instead of 2. I don't know if it's a 1-to-1 relationship to drop it, but.
Right. So from the build, so I think on our end, we would need to talk about, because he's sitting here thinking, okay, yeah, but I can't do this, all right. So we would have to talk about parking, obviously. Not this evening, but if you were to scroll further down, don't. But I have two things on here where we're looking at, well, why do we have this gradation of building coverage? And I think with just a little tweaking, suggested tweaking of our council, we could turn it into not a, I think that the intent, which I have examples of, is for large structures that are inappropriate with the scale of the lot, the bigger the lot. But if you had more smaller buildings on a larger lot, and we were not measuring it as to lot size, building coverage, but maybe units on the lot, building coverage, then without changing our impervious, without the stormwater management issues, we could still expand the building coverage, so not so that we can get, an enormous building on your one building, but hey, if you're doing 6 or whatever that is, that's a different metric. And I think a strong argument can be made there.
Sure. Agreed. Okay. I like the feedback. So
Definitely have possibility of not helping you with some of your coverages.
what's that?
We have I don't know who the zoning officer was, but there's some non-conformities here that would alter what the determination would be on what your coverage should be. I don't know specifically, I haven't looked them up, I haven't sat down and analyzed this. But there's, like, if you're talking about how close they can be to that alley, you already have garages right directly on the alley. So you're replacing those back 3 places. You're replacing that
Within
garage
the same footprint.
in the same footprint. So at this point, you basically have that ability as a non-conformity.
And just to point out, again, like, obviously, I can't put a curb cut on the front street. The curb cut is already there, right? So like I'm leaning into those.
So
those.
that's when it jumps off. Because you had said something about there's how the buildings in the alley are too close or something like that. The frontage there.
Technically, if there were existing structures.
So that's what I'm saying. You have ability to look at forms that outweigh some of the things that would go against you from the zones.
So I think you should do the senior.
So, Thomas, your preferences for the other? Is it over, if you had to do one, you would say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's just like whatever pencils, whatever you.
Yeah.
What if you did the seniors thing, stacked houses on top of
Right, I mean, in both cases, like, okay, parking, that's part of your conversation about like what is appropriate from a parking.
You just
point
need
of view.
You're talking,
Lift
Matt, you're talking
requires-
about this.
Yeah.
This, but maybe 2 stories or something.
Yeah, would that be a possibility?
I think it just depends on, what happens to parking. You do have a municipal lot that's just across the alley, right at the turn, right? The municipal lot on the steep grade is.
Oh, yeah, that whole
Right
corner,
next to you.
the Masters Baker parking lot.
Oh, I thought that was, does Westchester come out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
County.
Right.
No.
County uses.
On the other side. On the other side of the street.
And half that block is zone town center.
Parking is hard there, and that particular lot is leased out, and so, like, just be careful with that.
Are there people doing any types of buildings where no parking is required?
So it's
Like, what have you started there?
When we updated the zoning, it was the case that it didn't actually specify multifamily, but developments had a ULI study that they were supposed to do to figure out how many parking spots they needed. I think the intent was great. Ray led that. I think it got used and abused, and one of the things that never touched would be, if you look at if there was like a theme to the comp plan, maybe it's like attainability or like getting more street trees or something like that. It wasn't like big multifamily structures. So it could have made sense in the zoning update to say single family like this, maybe there's a break in parking if it's small enough, right? But a 1 bedroom is 1 parking space or something like that. Instead, it was like only to the multifamilies. So this has always been two parking, not always, but it's two parking, didn't change per dwelling unit. But there was this ULI study, so it could be a path to go down and say, hey, it was up to 12 units because we pulled it back to that. So 12 units and under could do a ULI study. I don't know because it's not multifamily, it would qualify for that or not. Because I don't think it ever specified that it had to be multifamily. So it could be the case that something like this is 5 units. Right, so it could be the case that a ULI study could be computed, in which case you could say, hey, we shouldn't need to do it because they take into factors like senior housing. It takes into a bunch of other factors when it's figuring out parking. So that might be the pathway.
Okay. All right. I got your vibe finally on your non-conformity of the lot. Thank you for sketching this up in both different options. And,
It isn't a lot.
what's that?
A lot.
Oh, the
The
love.
use and the lot are good, the buildings are not.
Doesn't know how he got them.
It's fascinating. It's like all our corner stores and all that good stuff. Most of our town is not controlled. I think you said you had a family member, you were renovating a 14 or 16-foot townhouse right on Darlington. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about that size, and attainability. Unfortunately, that's a non-conforming structure. The lot is at least not the structure. The lot's not.
Yeah, they did all types of interesting stuff in the property.
We're trying to open those doors again.
I'm only 25, that's great.
Because half the borough sewer and the downspouts all go in the same spot.
Or on someone else's.
No,
What's that?
no less.
Little less than half? Yeah.
So,
Well, but I think at least you have something to think about. I mean,
I do. I
we
got
would
plenty
encourage your work with you on something that's, again, in that kind of a vein. I think just to, it's certainly something that can happen, but if you're gonna get the dollars up there, I understand why it would make sense to maybe look at other options that would work with you to get something that, like I said, I do think either one of these as a starting point.
Right. Time is money, so it's probably tricky. Like we're like, hey, why don't we start a conversation about this? And you're like, yeah, but you can't do any of this. But maybe it's the case that you could start that, submit something that's like that, and then we can figure out.
Yeah, I'll have to dive into the building cost.
Yeah.
Basically on both. And then run it by a couple of realtors and see what they think is actually gonna move. I mean, do you see any other senior housing being developed or built around the borough? Similar situations?
I would say I have not, but I wouldn't say that that's a reason that it would stop. And there's a huge amount of demand.
There was another job came up a couple months ago, he was looking to build condos for individuals that were downsizing. He was in late 50s, early 60s, he's looking to maximize, or he sees an opportunity, he saw an opportunity to do something with the local property on Gate Street. Didn't work, but the idea was that he's looking for an opportunity to give people that love this borough that's been here forever, that just don't need to be in a 3,000 square foot home, 2,000 square foot home. But they want to just, not spend their whole life changing a house.
And somebody else to take care of the property.
Yeah.
So there has been a few people that have expressed interest in trying to develop something like that, so it's not unheard of.
Okay.
Whether or not it's been done yet, not my year.
But it also extends to, there are individuals that are then aging up in their existing home. If they were able to relocate, stay in the borough, that frees up that other home. So
Right.
that's the big driver too, is there's a lot of big homes, just slowly, maybe not getting the care they could with the younger families. You want to treat the old people well.
Yeah.
gotta take care of
All right, very good.
All right.
Thank you, Matt, so
it.
much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Carol, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, we only have.
Thanks, Tom. Looks great.
We'll see you guys next week. If you can though, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn this and then, but if you can, give some thought, there's two motions that are gonna have to happen. Well, two motions that I believe, one's on the vape ordinance, that's gonna be fairly, straightforward, and the other one is on 410 South High Street. I think, it may be involved enough relative to, I'll have to talk to Matt, but we might want to pre-write something up that if we're including or have any conditions, one of the ones that I remember Matt was saying was underground utilities, that one line, that was one power line along Price that was crossing. There is a specific ordinance, we should say that, since that drives in there. But if you have any thoughts ahead of time, we'll put together a motion, we can have it, if we can kind of consolidate, put together and be able to read it in a more organized way, I think would make some sense. My big concern here is because of the last go around, and I believe that I don't want any residents thinking we're trying to just push something in, sneak something through, they didn't have an opportunity to review it. So that's why it's important that we are crossing T's and dotting I's here, so, right? So,
I am not gonna be here next.
what, okay. Well, you going to this one, I hope?
I am going to Lake Champlain.
Nice.
You're what?
Lake Champlain.
Nice. I can't,